Well, you know things are bad when a guy firing nearly 200 rounds at a federal building is barely a blip on the radar. But here we are. My name is Brittany Page, and this is the Page Perspective. Genuinely curious, so tell me in the comments, did you hear about this? Amid everything happening, I don't know how something as significant as this falls off the front page. Donald Trump hasn't even issued a statement about it. Imagine that. Someone shot up a federal building, and the president of the United States can't even make a statement about it. Big balls from Doge gets slapped around by a couple of teenage girls, and he sends the National Guard to occupy DC. But an anti-vaccine activist shooting up the Centers for Disease Control, and it's crickets from the government, huh? We can't let that stand. I'm going to play for you some interviews with CDC employees who are so afraid, who are so traumatized after what they've endured that they don't even want to show their faces or use their real voices to talk about their experiences. But first, what happened? Let's look at this reporting from CBS. Quote, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention employees in Atlanta on Monday recalled the harrowing moment a gunman fired nearly 200 shots at multiple office buildings last week, killing a responding police officer. 4 CDC workers who were not authorized to speak publicly told CBS News under the condition of anonymity that they were, quote, deeply disappointed and frustrated by an apparent lack of leadership following Friday's shooting. 3 of the 4 employees are mothers, and all of them had differing experiences of the gunfire. One was inside a building standing in a window that would later be shot out. One was inside the on-site daycare center with her children. One was walking to their car, and another was at home. Quote, I was walking to my car. I heard a very, very distinct and crisp pop, 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 one CDC employee said. I knew that I had to get myself to safety because if I continued walking across the courtyard, I could potentially be in a killing field. This reporting goes on to note that there were at least 180 shots that hit at least 150 windows, and that shards of glass were sent 30 to 60 feet in multiple rooms. Employees describe sheltering in place for hours, not knowing what is happening or what the status of the shooter was. They say they saw a teacher from the on-site daycare center running away with children. National Guard for big balls. Silence for children running in fear of an anti-vaccine activist shooting up the CDC. Quote, while authorities have not publicly identified White's motive, Hosey said investigators found written documents at White's residence which, quote, expressed his discontent with the COVID-19 vaccination. Several of White's neighbors, the suspect, told CBS News that he was outspokenly against vaccines. And a law enforcement source said authorities were looking into the possibility that the gunman believed the COVID-19 vaccines had made him sick. His father said White had become fixated on the COVID-19 vaccine. And who is it that is constantly fear-mongering about vaccines? Could it be the Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr.? Although Trump has been silent, RFK has not. He even visited the CDC and issued a statement on Elon Musk's Nazi website. But he doesn't get any credit for doing the bare minimum, especially when he spends the rest of his time advancing the very conspiracy theories that radicalize people to take to the streets and commit acts of violence against scientists and public health professionals and daycare teachers and children in daycare centers. And you don't have to take it from me. Take it from the union, who said the shooter spent more time on the ground at the CDC than RFK did. Or this, quote, the CDC employees who spoke to CBS News said they expect more from the health secretary, hoping he would condemn the rhetoric that they believe led to the shooting. Quote, I think the challenge is that it would be hard for anyone to trust that he's sincere, one employee said in reference to Kennedy, who has been criticized for his past anti-vaccine statements. Quote, he has been trashing, the whole administration has been trashing the CDC and the work that we do. And RFK isn't listening to these CDC employees. He isn't slowing down on the trashing of the CDC and their work or vaccinations. He just gave an interview on Scripps News where they spent the beginning portion of the interview talking about the CDC shooting, where the interviewer asked questions like this.
So what is the plan to sort of quell disinformation, misinformation, so that something like this doesn't happen again?
Now, that's a great question. Unfortunately, RFK can't help himself when it comes to sowing distrust in government institutions.
And, one of the things that we saw during COVID is that the government was overreaching in its efforts to persuade the public to get vaccinated, and they were saying things that were not always true. And public health agencies should never do that. There are many other countries that actually have higher vaccination rates than ours, where there are no mandates, and it's because people trust their government. Americans have lost faith in the federal government.
They've lost faith in the federal government. Could it be because the Secretary of Health and Human Services is calling the health directives issued by the government lies, including during this very interview? Could it be the continuous onslaught of conspiracies advanced by the Secretary of Health and Human Services? To hear RFK tell it, the reason that Americans don't trust the health directives from the government is very elementary and has nothing at all to do with him and his team of anti-vaccine activists putting their thumbs on the scale.
We have to ask, why are people not believing the public health agencies? And the answer, I think, is pretty elementary. That the public health agencies have not been honest. And no matter how well-intentioned it is to tell a noble lie, to get an outcome that you want, it never works over the long time.
A truly nauseating but expected display given his complete inability to be self-reflective or take responsibility, even as he continues to attack the very federal agency that just came under literal fire from someone who was brainwashed by the same anti-vaccine disinformation that RFK promotes, including in the immediate aftermath of a deadly shooting on the CDC. It's just a wild state of affairs, and I can't get over so many moments in that interview, but there was also a moment where RFK was defending terminating $500 million in funds for mRNA research, and his defense is, well, the public doesn't trust mRNA vaccines. Now, why in God's name would you allow the general public to dictate the direction of health policy? If Americans are skeptical of vaccines, one, it's your fault. Two, you should work to ensure that they trust vaccines. You don't terminate millions of dollars in research that saves lives. But I told you there were CDC employees who came forward to give interviews to the media, but who were so afraid that they wanted their images and voices obscured so they could not be identified. They sat for an interview with Dr. Celine Gowder on CBS News. And I want to play a brief portion of that for you here. First, what do these CDC employees see as the motivating factor in this violence? Do they blame RFK and his rhetoric?
But I do think that it is a part of a pattern of behavior of using misinformation and conspiracies to demonize CDC scientists. When you throw unwarranted skepticism on an intervention that has saved millions of lives, and frankly was projected to probably save millions more with novel vaccines that were being developed for other viruses and even therapeutics for cancer, I do think that that is just, again, part of a string of rhetoric that motivated the gunmen to target us.
Absolutely. And I can't let go of the optics here. These are public health officials. These are scientists. They've dedicated years of their lives, likely nearing a decade of schooling, in order to work in this field. And now they're so afraid to even speak about their essential work that they require filters on their faces and voices. And RFK still can't stop lying about vaccines. He's doubling down. But what about what these employees would like to see from RFK?
If he is not able to fully commit to stop attacking us and to stop attacking the interventions that we as scientists objectively evaluate, that this is going to continue. I want him to express contrition for his past behavior. And I want him to disavow his previous comments and commit to doing better moving forward and to support CDC staff in the work that we do.
I mean, sorry to these employees, but if RFK's media appearances post-shooting are any indication, you won't be getting any of this anytime soon, or at all. RFK has a lifelong record of conspiratorial thinking and anti-vaccine activism. He's not a scientist. He does not respect science. He's not an authority on anything, except maybe dropping the brainworm excuse as a justification for how you're experiencing cognitive decline and can't afford alimony during divorce proceedings. True brainworm story, you guys. Brainworm reduced his cognitive abilities so much that he argued he couldn't pay alimony, but here he is, unencumbered by the brainworm, flexing at maximum cognitive capacity. Can't you tell? Can't you tell? The reaction, again, to this public shooting tells us so many things. Donald Trump is not actually concerned with public safety. He's not actually concerned with the safety of Americans' children. He's not interested in being a leader for all Americans. We already knew these things, and it's unfortunate that we get one reminder after another, but it's worth reinforcing for those who still don't seem to get it. What do you think? Call and leave me a fewer than 3-minute voicemail at 202-656-1509 or send an email to info@thepageperspective.com. You can support my work by becoming a channel member by clicking the join button below for as little as $1.99 a month or by going to patreon.com/idoubtitpodcast. Please follow me on social media. I'm everywhere but the aforementioned Elon Musk Nazi website at Brittany Page. As always, thank you for being here. Take care, and I'll see you next time.